right, let's do a quick intro. So I need you to go to p5.js if you haven't already. Let's do some simple stuff today. It's going to be a fun exercise. I want everybody to do this, okay? p5.js. Once you go here, go to editor. All right. Once you go to the website, go to the editor. And here we are. So all right. Are you ready? Okay. So first things first, what happens here? Let's see, we are writing here our sketches, and here we get a preview of what the sketch basically creates, right? So for now, we have two commands. Actually, we have two things running. We have setup and draw. Setup is basically the canvas or the program setting that we want to set. Draw is basically a function that is called over and over again. And in case we want to do something procedurally drawn, we can write it here. But if you want to draw something static, we can write it in setup too. So you're going to see the difference in a second. But right now, we have two functions. One is called create canvas. The other one is background 220. Now, what do these mean? Create canvas basically takes width and a height. So when I hit play, it basically creates a canvas that is 400 by 400 pixels. And it renders its background to be 220. Now, what is 220? Huh? It's not pixels. It is color. But color space, in case you have any questions, you can actually just asking this, stating this from the get-go, but you can type in here the command, background. So go to the reference. Under reference, it will basically describe you how background works. So when you supply one value, it's basically a grayscale integer value for the background, right? And now, if you supply three colors, RGB values, red, green, and blue, they have to go from 0 to 255. Why do they have to go from 0 to 255?
Main color covers.
You have worked with Photoshop before, right? Now, why do we get this? There's RGB, there's HSV, and here you get 6 digits with a hashtag, right? This is a hexadecimal representation of that color code. Basically, the color that you want to use could be interpreted as red, green, and blue values that go from 0 to 255. Why? Because each value stores a byte. A byte is 8 bits. 8 bits means 8 binary bits. 2 to the power of 8 is 255. Okay, so here you can see there are 16,777,216 possibilities of color combinations, right? So those are all the bytes that are available, and the hexadecimal is basically a compressed version or representation of it, because hexadecimal is based on 16. not 8. So it's compresses it in half, basically. Okay. Anyway, we're going to go over these again multiple times, so don't worry. But just keep in mind that RGB values go from 0 to 255, and pixel values go from. I'm also going to talk about pixel space, but these values go from like this. So if I change, for instance, any color that I want, I can investigate its RGB value here, its corresponding hexadecimal value as well. And you can also click on some of these and find out what their RGB values are, right? So now if I want to make this canvas red, what do I have to enter in the background? Red. I want to make this red, purely red. What do I need to enter here? Huh? 155? 0, 0. Good. Yeah. Now we have red. Yellow? Yellow is 255, 255, 0. 255, 255, 255? White. 0? Black. Good. We're on the right track. Now, let's think about the canvas. So we said 400 by 400. What does that mean? So we have a width and a height, right? Let's say we want to have a vertical canvas. Then I want to have 400 horizontal pixels, 800 vertical pixels. That's my canvas. Let's make this 600. Now I have the canvas. Now let's draw a line on this canvas. Single line. Okay, how do we draw a line? You can always go to reference here. Reference has all the commands that are available to you, by the way. I don't need you to memorize all of those, but just it's a library of resource you can always refer to. What do we want to create? We want to create a line. So it's a method already embedded. How do we create a line? Here you have a description of how the line is drawn, what are its parameters, how they are actually written in syntax. So a two-dimensional line basically has the X and Y locations of the first and the second point. That's it. And then it says you can use the stroke weight and the stroke to control its color and line weight. So let's look at those. So where do I want to draw the line? Let's first define a stroke. Let's say I want to draw a stroke to be 255 because our canvas is black. Okay, and then I type in line. Where do I want to draw the line? Let's say we want to draw it from the left top to the middle. Now, this location here is 0, 0. This is your origin. And it goes positive way this way and positive way this way. Okay, I'll just draw it over. So this corner is 0, 0. This corner right here, that's your origin, 0, 0. X is 0, Y is 0. What is this corner then? Huh? No. Huh? No. No. No. It is 399 and 599. Why? Because we start with 0. 0 counts. First rule of computer science, 0 counts. So when you want to get the first item of a list, what's the index of the first item in a list? 0, not 1. You start with 0. So since we start with 0, we end with 399 and 599. So that still means we have 400 pixels here and 600 pixels here because we start counting with 0. Make sense? Okay, so this point was 0, 0. What is this point? Midpoint. We can call 200 and 300. That's fine. It wasn't a tricky question. The end was the tricky question to get you familiar with the canvas space. But let's say we want to draw a line from 0, 0 to 200 to 300, you said? Run. Oh, we had the background, sorry. Let's push the background here. Voila, that's a line. Now, why did I have to move the background here, from here to here? It's because, remember that setup is called once, draw is called all the time. So if I move background here, that means whatever I draw here, it will be covered with background. So I will see the black canvas, right? So that's how we should read the code as well. There's an order of reading things. For instance, if I do it this way, are you ready? So what if I draw it here in draw, like not in setup, but in draw? I'll also get the same picture, but this will be called recursively. So it's always drawing a single line every frame. How do I know that? Well, I can do this. Now, what does this mean? What did I write? What is random? Let's look up random. Random, return a random floating point number. Takes either 0, 1, or 2 arguments. When you take a single value, you basically give, do we have to write? I guess I can give it one value. I think it would work, but let's see. It basically gives me a random value up to that point. So I could also do it like this, by the way, 0 to width and 0 to height. Right? Now, what is this? Random 0 to width. It basically gives me a random value within that interval, right? What is width? Width is 400. So this will return a value between 0 and 400. What would this return? 0 to 600. Height is 600, right? Do you want me to make this larger? You can make it larger. Better? Huh? All right, let's make the canvas 400. Now what's going to happen? Let's push this here. What's going to happen? Am I going to see this line? Well, I get to see this line. I press play again. Let's do this 200 to 200. Every time I press play, I get a different line. Why? Huh? Because of the random. Now, I only get one line. Now, watch what happens when I push this to draw. You ready? Now, let's push background here. Actually, let's keep background here. Now I press play. What's happening? This is basically the frame count, right? So imagine we are looking at a program that runs 24 frames per second. That's the average movie you watch, right? So you're shown 20 frames in a second. What's happening here is this function gets called 24 times in a second. So when it's called 24 times in a second, you're getting a random line drawn 24 times. Huh? We can slow the time by changing the frame count. There's a frame count property. Let's say we change the frame rate. Let's say frame rate is 4. No, this is just how many frames you want to see per second. Right? Frame count. Make sense? Now, what if I don't draw a background here, but I specify the background in setup? Now, what happens? What's happening? What's going on? Huh? I can wait. What's going on? So let's break this down. I created a canvas. I specified the frame rate to be 4, and I set the background to be 0. I'm basically done with setup. And then in draw, I call stroke to 55. I can also move stroke here, by the way. This basically will create the stroke value for everything that goes inside the draw. And then I draw lines, random lines that have random XY values for the start point, but the end point is always at the center of the canvas. And it just keeps drawing.
The endpoint is 200, right?
200 by 200, but it's yeah, but it could be like this too. It doesn't matter. It could be like this. What's the difference? XY, X2. Right? Let's make this a bit simpler. We are actually going a bit fast. But rather than doing a line, let's do a circle, huh? Circle. Circle, what do we need for circles? Draw a circle at a location with a diameter. So this is the location, this is the diameter, right? So let's draw a circle here. I'm going to comment this out by doing double dash. Circle. What do we want the circle to be? Random. Let's call this random again. Random location and random diameter. Shall we do it? So it picks a random location and it picks a random diameter and it just puts a white circle there. That's it. And it does this 4 frames per second. Let's make this 20 frames per second. It's going to do it faster now. That's just 5 lines of code. I don't think it's that difficult, right? Okay. Let's do this. Let's not make any strokes. Let's type in no stroke. And let's do a random fill. Shall we do tones of yellow? For instance, 150, random, 150 to 255, and then 0. So every time it's calling draw, it's picking a random fill value. A fill value is basically what we fill the shape with, the color. Stroke is basically the lines of the shape, right? Since I did no stroke, these don't have stroke values. So the border of the circle is not drawn, but we're only dealing with fills inside. Let's make it a bit more interesting. So this is red, green, and blue parameters. I'll just make the red random as well. Let's make this from 50 to 255. And also, I will also give an alpha value. Alpha value is basically transparency. Let's look at fill. So what does fill take in? RGB, and it can also optionally take in an alpha value. Alpha value is basically transparency value, like a fourth parameter. So let's make this 30. 30 is actually too dark. Let's make this 120. Now they have some transparency. When they overlap, you will actually see colors blending. Okay. I can always increase some of these parameters. Let's make this 40 so we get larger circles. I'll stop here for a bit so that you can replicate this. Okay? Just try to write this code, experiment with it. Try doing lines, circles. Try figuring out rectangle maybe. Do it with rectangles. Huh? Who can do this with rectangles? Try to do it with rectangles.
Make a circle.
Yeah, lines, circles, rectangles, triangles, anything you want. Background doesn't have sufficient background to background suppose. Move the background there. Set up hole once, draw holes recursively. Okay. And be careful with the syntax. Be careful with the parentheses. Yeah, don't stop the program. But we will find a way of stopping circles. İlk circle çizdikten sonra biliyoruz. Bir de bir olması lazım. Size diyor ya o. Profesör diyor. Biz anlamları tutmaya çalışıyoruz. Öyle sinteks yaparız. It works. If you go to the P5 website, not download it, just go to web. Let's go to weapons. All the commands are here. You can type in whatever you want. Let's say you want to create a rectangle. Type this rectangle. Because we really want it. That's how you create it. All right, so if you need to debug your code, it will give you errors, right? For instance, let's say I made an error. I didn't close this. This is already giving kind of an underlining here. It's already presenting an error to me. If I hit like play, it says syntax error, missing parentheses after argument list. If you open this up, it shows you where the problem is. Line 11. It says you have to close this argument, so you close it. Now, one thing I didn't mention is we have different color text, right? And we have bold texts. For instance, these are called native program functions. So that's why they're bold. And then their parameters are inside these parentheses. So the parentheses are basically calling these functions. So when you open the parentheses, you always have to close it. I'll show you the rectangles as well. Let's do a rectangle. So how do we draw a rectangle? Draw a rectangle at location with width and height. But this is when the rect mode is specified to be at the center. I guess this is the default version of it. You can also have different ways of creating rectangles. For instance, you can do X, Y, W height. What are these parameters actually? Radius. So you can do these, like ovals almost at the edges. So let's create rectangles instead of circles. So what do I do? Rect is the command. We want to do at a random location. We want to do a random height, random 50. Well, that's W. This is width. Actually, let's do the width to be 10 always. So these are rectangles drawn instead of circles. I'm going to change the color palette. Let's make it bluish this time, or purple. Well, background, let's make it yellowish. Let's increase the height a bit more. What do you think? It's the simplest drawing we can come up with, right? Well, I guess this is always grabbing the left top corner of the rectangle. Why? Because I never get any rectangles going up from the canvas. So the rect mode needs to be changed actually. So rect mode, we can do it center. I guess this would make the rectangles go up as well. So we will place the midpoint, we will specify the location of the rectangle through its center. And let's make the width to be random too. Random 10. Yeah. Okay, there was a question asking about how can we stop it, right? Well, this is called as long as the program is running. If I want to draw a specified amount of rectangles, I can do it by using a loop, right? How do I do a loop? Well, there are multiple ways of doing it. I'll show you the simplest way. Let's do a while count. While, what is a while loop? Let's look at while loop. While loop JavaScript. I'm also showing you this way so that you will get into the habit of looking up what you need to do. JavaScript while loop. So we need, it's in this format. So while some condition is true, execute this block, right? And you have to be careful because if you don't terminate this, then you will get an infinite loop and the program will crash. So you should have a case that will be terminated after a specified amount. For instance, we can do it this way. While I is smaller than 10, text plus equals the number is I plus I, then I plus plus. What does this mean? If I do it, if I try it, then it basically plots this. And then when I is 10, this while loop is terminated, right? So inside of this, when I'm inside of this, I start with I equals 0. And then I come in here, is I less than 10 when it's 0? Yes. So if this condition is true, I enter inside the while loop. So I'm in this line and I plot text, the number is 0. Then I increment I by 1. So now I is 1. I go back to the beginning of the while loop. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. So I again go here, execute again, increment I by 1. Now I is 2. Is 2 smaller than 10? Yes. So I keep doing this until I becomes 10. When is 10 smaller than 10? No. So if this is false, I don't get into the while loop again. Make sense? I can simply copy this block, paste it here. It's written in JavaScript anyway. So I specify a parameter called I, set it to be 0, while I is less than 10. Instead of plotting a text, here I can draw a rectangle. So I'll just copy this function here. So how many rectangles is this going to draw? This is open brackets, close brackets, by the way. It's basically used for loops and program functions. How many rectangles are we going to draw? Nine? 9? 9 or 10? Which one? I guess 10. Because we start with 0, remember? 10. So I hit play. 10 rectangles. Do we have 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, let's do 100. Shall we do 500? I don't need to draw them one by one. Right? So you can use a while loop. And since I'm doing everything is set up, this gets drawn onto the canvas, and in draw, nothing gets drawn on top of it. and I just get shown the picture. And technically speaking, there's a function to save these canvases, but you can right click and save these images as well. Voila, my first generative art. It's on a canvas. Simple as that. Okay, so we did it in what, 15 minutes? No. Yeah, so create a canvas and create some drawings, and let me know if you have any questions. Well, try to use the library so that your control will be set, right? So you will be able to see it from school. Let me know if you have any questions. I can do it with circles as well, right? This is with circle. Shall we do it with line? Let's do it with lines. Well, in order to do it with lines, I need to not use fill, but I need to use stroke, right? Stroke. Stroke. Let's change stroke every time. And we don't have to do an alpha for stroke. And then we can also do stroke weight. Let's call stroke weight to be random up to 3. Oh, but it's always going to the middle. So maybe we do it random as well. From random location to random location. Well, something like this. It's a bit hectic, actually. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but maybe we can do this with rectangles. Like rather than doing it like this. Yeah, we do rotates. Rotate. Angle. The angle of rotation specified in radians or degrees, depending on the current angle mode. Angle mode. Angle mode. Degrees. All right, I haven't done this before. Let's try it. And we're going to do rotate. So we're going to do translate to random. And then do rotate random. Random pi. Oh my God. Didn't work. Do we do translate before or after? Maybe this is taking too much. Let's see. translate width or height. All right. Oh, we have to do translate probably to the middle first. Okay. Would this work? Oh, okay. Because this is always plus, I guess. I'm experimenting stuff, but yeah, nice. All right, let's do 500. What? Let's do we did translate here. Let's do -50. Yeah, we get some clutter. And, well, it takes some bias in some direction, but it's not too bad. I mean, what do you think of my abstract artwork? Let's do this a bit thicker, this a bit longer. Well, this is too much. Let's say 20 or 100, 60. Well, I did some translating and written operations. I'll look at those here. Yeah. Yok, zero small things and using like yeah, like I think when sonra böyle nasıl yapacaksın? Oku bak şey değil. Ne öyle? Which is not American. Bakman lazım. Ve doğru. Okay, be careful. If I delete this I plus plus here, if I delete this, then this will be an infinite loop. Why? Because this condition will never be terminated, right? I will never increment. So if I start with 0, it will always stay at 0, and it will always be smaller than 500, so it will be stuck inside of this while loop. So it will get into a stack overflow. Stack overflow means it's just recursively doing it. It doesn't know how to stop it. Okay, if you have the error, your program will crash. Yeah, it's probably close and rewrite. Yeah. Yeah, that's it for today. I guess this should be enough to keep you occupied for a week. Huh? Next week you will do it more stuff. And you will have your first assignment. Huh? Any questions? Yeah. That was fun or not? Huh? First time, people. This kind of stuff? Yeah. No. It's important, but then you'll be accommodated. No, it's very helpful. But you guys, all good? Good. All right. Good. So next week we're going to keep building upon the fundamentals. I'm leaving it here because I know it's a lot to load in the first class. But we did kind of a while loop. The difference between setup and draw again, setup run once, draw runs depending on the frame rate constantly. So if I want to draw something, I do it inside setup. And we can also do loops like this. We wrote a variation of a while loop, but we can also do for loops. There are nested for loops, double for loops, triple for loops, but this would be the simple iterator, right? So we can do something, execute for 500 times if you want to control the number. And we looked at basic geometries, line, circle, rectangles. I also did some translate and rotate functions, which I'm not going to get into. I kind of did it for my own amusement. But yeah, that's basically all of it in a nutshell, right? I'm going to send you this code. Don't worry about it. You don't have to take pictures, but if you want to copy it right now, I'll leave it on the screen. But you will get all the class material, all the recordings anyway, and we will continue next week. Any questions? Okay, next week we're going to continue with this, and you'll get your first assignment. So I'll let you go. Okay, awesome.